This is Creative Banter. While the information shared via TikTok, Instagram Reels, and social media in general can rarely be trusted, there are times when it connects in such a way that your habits begin to make a bit more sense. Habits such as constantly procrastinating, despite enjoying the activities you're avoiding. This week, Ben and I spend a majority of the episode discussing the impact that childhood praise has had on me in adulthood. Specifically, we discuss how a lack of being challenged can lead to a fear of failure, especially when these challenges are faced in a public manner. Let's dive right into this, shall we?
So I had another hard drive failure.
Oh no, not again.
And it's because I have the 4 external hard drives, 2 of which contain all my photos, and then 2 of which contain video. So there's a primary, then there's the redundant local drive, and they get cloned and everything. So I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was perhaps sometime this past summer or early fall or something like that, where I had one of the drives that died, and we talked about backup strategy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll put a link down in the show notes for that episode.
Yeah, and I have no sense of time as far as knowing when that is, but I know you'll be able to look that up pretty fast. But the drive that failed last time was one that contained my photo library, but I had the redundant drive, so I just ordered in a new drive. I basically swapped the new one for the one that died and then copied the contents over, and I was up and running. And those drives, I think I'd purchased them back in 2018. So they were, 5-ish years old. And so of the photo drives, one of them is updated in the new one. And then the older one, that one died this time. So basically the one that was of a similar age to the one that died first time around. So went ahead and ordered another 12 terabyte external Thunderbolt drive, and just copied the contents over from the one that was fine. And again, I'm up and running again just fine. And then I do have the Backblaze online backup in case both of them were to fail. But just as a reminder for those listening that drives do fail, and those ones were about 5 years old. And they died, not far from each other. So just a reminder that if you have your data on external drives, and if you don't have a way of, having redundancy in multiple on-site copies, as well as, online cloud-based backup, chances are you will lose something. And even though it does suck to have to buy another drive, I'm very happy to buy another drive as opposed to what could otherwise happen. So just a little reminder out there for those listening.
Yeah, because that first drive failed. Let me think here. That was before your last trip to Zion that you just are posting the videos from. That was after you and your wife got back from a trip that you had taken.
Okay, so that would have been at some point summer through early fall.
Yeah, it was like early in that range. It was like early fall, and I remember because you had all of these like costs building up between the hard drive and then something with your Forerunner needing to get fixed up, and then you didn't have the first day funk because of that, or so we surmised.
You have better memory than I do
with certain things, but you asked me what I had for dinner last night, and it's going to be a struggle.
Yes.
No, but thinking on all of that, I've definitely got to switch over my drives and do some backup stuff. Start getting all of that programmed in, because I haven't. I've just been procrastinating on multiple different fronts, but that's not unusual for me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely take some action on that one, just because, it just serves as a reminder that things will happen. And it's good to at least have that, some sort of system in place.
Yeah.
just with the redundant local drive plus the online backup seems to give the best, best case scenario in terms of anything that could potentially happen, short of like a massive, planet destroying meteorite, which case, at that point, whatever,
At that point, not too concerned about it, but maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
No, but I was talking yesterday, when I had therapy yesterday, so I was talking to my therapist about procrastination a little bit, because a couple months ago, I want to say, probably right around the time that your hard drive failed, I saw a video, and as we all know, TikTok still creeps into our lives even if you don't have the app downloaded onto your phone, whether it's through YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or any of that.
Yeah.
I ended up seeing some video that someone posted, and the problem with all of this, of course, is that you never know how true the information is with it, but it seemed to resonate enough with me that I was like, yeah, this makes sense. And they were really saying that if you find that you heavily procrastinate, like in your adult life especially, that there's a potential link to how you were in your childhood, which, okay, so far so good. And they were saying that a lot of times, if in your childhood you didn't have to really work very hard for success, like if you were constantly a straight A student without studying, or constantly being praised by your parents because of all of this, and because you didn't have to try so hard, once you get to that point where you have to start trying hard, you start pushing it off more because you fear that you aren't going to live up to the expectations that you've built thus far in your parents, your grandparents, those around you. And that if you do fail, you're just not only letting yourself down for failing, but you're letting down everyone else around you. And hence, you just keep pushing it off. You keep procrastinating, which to me, that's pretty much describes how I am, or that describes why I procrastinate so much, because I was that like straight A student in elementary and middle school, and for most of high school. Like I was saying to my therapist, I don't remember the last time that I actually studied for anything. Like for teaching, you have to pass this, they call it the praxis test, and it's just a generalized test of your knowledge around a specific subject area in regard to teaching. And for me, it was in the English praxis. And I took it 2 times without studying either time. The first time I was 1 point away from passing, which obviously pissed me off.
Yeah, so close.
And the second time I passed just fine. And I hadn't taken an English class in quite a long while before that. So again, especially when it comes to like school and stuff, never really had to try super hard. But then once I get into something like writing or sharing my knowledge elsewhere, I procrastinate and I push it off because of that fear of failing and disappointing those around me that I've built up these expectations for.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of, from the outside looking at it, seems like it kind of manifests itself as like a burnout in a way, but it really seems like it has a different sort of causation, from your perspective.
Yeah.
And I also wonder if some of that has to do with the whatever part of it, if something comes to you fairly naturally, and also perhaps a part of it, if it didn't come to one naturally, then they would have to develop a different set of skills in order to sort of solve those problems. And I also wonder if some of it has to do with, if one does very well with something so early on, then, the skill set that you have that can apply to other things, that isn't constantly being built up and reinforced. So that's interesting. I was never really that way. I was kind of an okay student. I was not a straight A student. I was like a straight B minus student.
That's
I guess
how I was in high school. I was like I was straight A up until like most of middle school, and then high school hit, and I was like, all right, I'll just float along with B's for the most part. Like, I'm not going to be valedictorian, but I'm also definitely going to pass.
Yeah. And also you reach a point when going through school that simply paying attention in class isn't really enough, where you do have to start, doing even more of the, independent studying and all that kind of stuff, and being able to digest all the textbooks. I hated reading textbooks. I was not good at it. I just, after a while, my eyes would just kind of glaze over. I couldn't digest all that information. But if it was presented in a way where it was in class, in a lecture, and something that, I don't know, in that standpoint, I was pretty good at it. Like, there were some classes in college where it was something I was interested in. Like, there's one, it was a meteorology class. There was some geology classes I took. And on those classes, I never had to study. I could always just remember what it was that was being said in class. And at the same time, I was like doodling in the margins of my notes. And you wouldn't even, I would take a little bit of notes, but mostly just by me doodling, it would just allow me to commit that information to memory. But if it was something where I had to read, a bunch of textbook stuff, and then somehow take those 3 points away from it that I didn't even know what I was trying to, take away from that text, I just could not absorb that sort of information. So I know that got to me as I started going through high school, and also a little bit into college, just because it was a different style of studying.
Yeah.
So I never really had that experience in terms of, things coming to me very naturally from that standpoint.
And I mean, I found it especially during college when I was learning these different, like taking these different education classes, that it was just, I just sat there and just absorbed the information. And it was just, to me, it was stupid easy. Like, yeah, this is all common sense. And it was, I don't say this to like kind of toot my own horn or anything, because to me, it was just, it wasn't fun to be in those classes. Like, it wasn't enjoyable to be sitting through those classes and listening to these lectures and everything, because of,
it wasn't really challenging you. It doesn't sound
exactly like I wasn't challenged by anything. I didn't have to work hard for the grades that I got. I mean, throughout my master's, I was, and again, this irritates the hell out of me, just like with not passing the practice by 1 point. I was 1 A away from getting a 4.0 for my master's program.
Oh.
I have a 3.96 GPA for my master's. And it was
just like from an OCD standpoint, it's like, it's so close.
Yes,
it's so
exactly
close. Yeah.
It was from one teacher. Everybody in my cohort hated this teacher, and she just gave me a B instead of even the A- or whatever that would have bumped it up. But regardless, like throughout most of college and most of school that I remember, like there were very few times where I genuinely struggled with classes, and it's a shame because I craved that challenge, and I craved having interest in what was being taught to me and being challenged by the teachers and by these subjects, but it just wasn't there. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a shame. Like I still want that challenge, but now it's to the point where I am so far into this mentality of things coming easy to me that when they don't, I back into a corner, and I don't know what else to do. Like, I back into this corner, and as much as I want to sit down and write a long form essay about something and do the research for it or whatever, I have that little bit of a hurdle that I just can't seem to get over.
Huh. Now, is there anything that has been suggested to you, or anything that you've learned in the process of this that is a way of counteracting that? I mean, do you have to like go out of your way to intentionally do something that you're not going to be good at in order to to build those muscles or those like neural pathways or anything? Do you have any feeling for, moving forward, how to go about finding a way around that?
The closest that I can think of that we've been talking about in therapy is more of an acceptance of who you are, kind of deal. So like me being as introverted as I tend to be for holiday gatherings and kind of that kind of deal, allowing myself to kind of find a quiet area among the people and accept that, yeah, I'm going to be playing on my phone, or I'm going to be playing around with Emmy more than I'm going to be talking to other people, and accepting that. And so if I use that as an example for like this, that I have to kind of flip the script on it and say, I have to accept the fact that I'm going to fail here and there, that not everything that I put out there is going to resonate with people. Not everything that I do is going to be an overnight success. Not like those exist anyway, but there's certain like mindset, certain scripts that need to be flipped with it that I just need to work towards. But outside of that, I'm really not sure. Outside of just pushing myself to continue doing the work that I'm doing, or that I want to be doing, rather. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it sounds like you're basically kind of running into this wall, and it does. I mean, I don't remember where I saw it, but there was something I saw where someone was doing something that they were really not good at, but they were doing it intentionally because they were really not good at it. Mm-hmm. Like a person, they're like playing golf and all this sort of stuff, and they went into it knowing that like, yes, I am going to suck at this, and this is why I'm doing this, and I don't even want to be good at it. I just want to like have that experience of not being good at that. And I don't know what it was that brought themselves to do that. They just wanted to try all these sort of different things, not as though they're trying to find something that they, were good at, but just maybe it was to have that dose of I'm just doing this for the sake of doing this. Like, I'm not trying to be the best at it. I'm not trying to prove anything in the process, but in some ways just doing something different, with the expectation of it not being something that they're good at. I don't know. It makes me wonder if there's some way you can force yourself to do something along those lines.
Yeah.
And to sort of, I don't know, just change the way of thinking. And maybe it's a sort of thing where you learn something in the process of doing something where you don't expect perfection from it. I mean, I know you're not going to look perfect in spandex when you wear like the full spandex outfit.
That's what you think. That's what you think. All of a sudden, I'm going to become a spandex influencer, and it's just going to come out of left field. How did he get so
good at that? It's like he's not even trying.
Exactly.
How does he know all the poses? Jeez. Yeah.
My first selfie that I post in spandex on my Instagram story is just going to rock the world. Yeah. Nobody's going to expect it. No one's going to know it's coming, and everyone's going to be blown away.
It'll just be there. Everyone's going to be talking about it.
A natural spandex model.
Yeah. like for me, when it comes to, if there's something that I am not necessarily great at, like I don't want an audience when I do it. But I'm fine sort of doing it on my own time and feeling my way through something. Like, I don't learn very well based on reading things. I learn based on being hands-on with something. And so just like when I got the bike, I know that there's going to be a pretty significant learning curve when it comes to, all this stuff that's involved with it, putting new tires on it and all this sort of stuff. And so I went into it knowing that, yes, this is going to be a learning curve. I'm not going to naturally know all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want someone to be there and to teach me how to do something. I'm like, I'll just kind of figure it out on my own. I know I'm going to make all kinds of mistakes along the way. I'm not expecting perfection, and hopefully I don't mess up stuff too much in the process of doing so. But if I can do something on my own without a sort of audience, which I think is also why when it comes to doing like the video stuff, I don't really like, unless it's something I know I'm kind of decent at, I'll share that sort of stuff on YouTube. But if it was trying out something completely new and different, I don't really want like eyes on me in terms of like the videos and stuff like that as I'm doing something completely different. To me, it's probably also just too much to try to, I don't know, too much to try to think about at one time. But I don't know. Maybe there's something in there where find something to sort of do on your own time, which doesn't really demand any sort of perfection whatsoever. But maybe in the process of doing so, there's some different, I don't know, skill sets or anything that can apply to other things as well. Because I mean, I don't know. I don't know really how you break that sort of thinking, because it seems like it's so deeply rooted, since it's something ever since like when you're a kid. So it's a different sort of, that is kind of tricky.
I think the other issue too is that so much of what we do these days is within the public sphere. Like if I want to try, like, say, photography presentations, which is something that I plan on doing this year, well, you can't really do a photography presentation by yourself.
No.
Like,
well, I mean, you could. It wouldn't. What's the point?
Exactly. Yeah. You're not going to get good at it, but you're also not going to get worse at it. So by doing it yourself. But I think that's the biggest issue too, is that a lot of the stuff that I want to do, whether it's my writing, whether it's speaking engagements, whatever, it's all putting myself out there for the judgment of others, and just having that ingrained fear of falling flat on my face, which it's just, I think what it all comes down to is just realizing that, first of all, I'm bound to make mistakes. Like, I'm bound to screw up some kind of information in an article that I write, because trying to find correct information on the internet is extremely time intensive and difficult, more so every day because of all the information that's out there. But I think it's just a matter of realizing that you're going to fail, and it's going to happen. And it's not a matter of if, but when, and just coming to terms with that and being okay and accepting with it, I think is just how I have to approach everything.
And there's another aspect of that as well, which is people don't really root for perfection. Like if there's a person who's very, very good at something, the people watching that aren't necessarily, it's different than like if a person is not the greatest at something, you kind of have more people rooting for you than the person who's, perfect in every way to the point where they just don't even seem human anymore.
Right.
So even though like from your standpoint, if you're, doing that presentation or something like that, and you feel like, oh, this is going horrible, this is not perfect, this and that, people watching it, they'll probably be rooting for you more than if you were perfect delivery, perfect posture, nailing all those points, this and that. I think we live in a world where perfection just feels, I don't know, it's not relatable. Especially
in a world where we have AI coming hot around the corner and machine, like everyone's afraid of AI taking everything over because of it being so perfect, that we want to see those little mistakes. We want to see the humanity in the art and the writing and everything that's produced and put out there. So I definitely see that of your true audience caring more about what you're saying versus the few mistakes that you're making or you failing here or there. So
because perfection is not relatable. And I think also, like based on my own experiences, especially as I'm going through and working on all the videos from the fall trip, it's great when I have a photo that turns out the way I like, that I'm happy with it. It's fun to share that. But also I share all the photos I shoot, including, all the ones that, didn't make the cut for whatever reason. Now, I think if I only put out there the absolute best work, it would be a lot different than here's everything, and it builds a greater sense of an appreciation for the stuff that does turn out the way I'm happy with it. And I think there's some, lessons to be learned about that. So I think that's the other thing too. Whereas, when you see everything that's people are putting out there, you're just seeing the best of the best. You're seeing everything, and it's not anything that the average person really is able to measure up to, because you're not really seeing the whole picture. And so, I don't know, there's got to be some ways of, as you put stuff out there, have some way of it being less perfected in a way by design. And I don't know how that is, but coming back to like when I make the unpolished ebooks where I just have the handwritten journals and stuff, I mean, I'm like scribbling stuff out in some cases because I'm just kind of going in the wrong direction. But, it's stuff like that, just kind of like the roughness of it. I don't have to worry about spell check or how things are phrased. It kind of putting things out there that's a little bit rougher is, I think, a more rewarding experience versus trying to go for that ultra perfect. As another example, when I put the zine out, there was a photographer who said, "Hey, this turned out really cool. There's a typo here," and I'm like, it's like finding Waldo. I bet there's probably a typo at every single page. I don't really want to know where it is, because then I'm just going to see that typo and that imperfection. Right. I know it's there. Right. I know there's multiple. And you probably spotted it because I sent you a copy of it. But
I actually haven't looked through it just yet. It's sitting on my desk, and I'm planning on watching it.
I know you'll be able to spot it. I looked when I was laying out the type and stuff for that. I looked at it so much that my eyes glazed over. I couldn't see words anymore. And so I know that there's typos in there, but like, I don't even want to know where they are, because they'll kind of ruin it for me. But I think doing something by design that is a little less polished, I think maybe that would kind of bring some sort of change to the process.
Yeah, the past few days, actually since the start of this new year, I've been doing a little bit of, I guess you would call it, blogging on my website, and just writing down thoughts that I have, and like talking a little bit about how tired I've been the past 2 days and burnt out because of the last quarter of 23, and between the stress of the job hunt, getting the puppies, and the lack of sleep, and then the last 2 weeks of the year being full of holiday, whatever, and being surrounded by people all the time. But just writing more personably, and a lot more loose, and not worrying so much about perfection with it. I'm not printing out and going through multiple different drafts with these writings. It's just, I type them up quick, whatever's on my mind, I throw it up on the website, and I move on with my day. And I definitely think that is going to be beneficial in the long run when it comes to this whole perfection thing. And even if my long form essays take me longer because of it, and I drill down into the editing with them and doing multiple drafts, even there, I think that it's going to come a point where I do 2 or 4 drafts, and then I just send it off how it is, because I can't spend forever on it. Otherwise, I'll have 4 essays in my drawer like I currently do that haven't seen the light of day, but I'm happy with them. But I just have kept procrastinating, because I think, what if one person on the internet gives me a weird comment like you got that we talked about last week?
The YouTube comment section, they'll put you in line right there. Yeah.
Oh,
you just gotta put those essays out on YouTube somehow, and you'll be humbled. That's for sure. They'll let you know everything. Lots of experts out there. I'll tell you that your writing is unbalanced.
It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. I'm probably just giving my opinion and not considering theirs on certain topics. So, yeah.
On a somewhat related note, so I've been thinking about how in the next couple years or so, I'll be due for a new car, and at this point, I'm thinking probably the new Toyota Tacoma with a little camper on the back, something to make the trips a little bit easier. There really isn't anything that is affordable that's electric yet that can get me where I need to go and all that sort of stuff, because I take pictures of rocks and trees, and they don't pay a lot of money. But in the process of doing so, I realized that one thing I will end up losing if I get the combo that I want is basically the rear view mirror. And so I'll have the side mirrors, but if I have, the camper in the back, whether it's the skinny guy camper that we talked about a while back, I just don't have a view at the rear window anymore. So just for the heck of it, I was driving around the other day. I'm like, I don't know what it'd be like, because I'm just so used to having the 3 mirrors. So I just adjusted the rear view mirror where it just looks up towards the headliner of my 4Runner. So I just don't have a view through that. And I was driving around, And I found that I was pleasantly surprised at how it was actually kind of nice not to necessarily have that rear view mirror, because I realized how often I am constantly looking at the car driving behind me and trying to analyze like the body language of the driver, and they look like they're probably like mad at me because I'm blocking their way and this and that. And so I just, when I was driving around, I'm like, oh, this is a lot more pleasant because I don't really, have the, I just don't even have that to consider anymore. And I'm just, driving like a normal person, going the, speed limit, or, just going about my way. But it was a lot nicer that way. And so it got me thinking a little bit about how, in that case, I was just going about my business, doing my own thing, and not as concerned about what other people were thinking, were doing, or anything like that. And about how that relates a bit to, my own photography, where I, photograph for myself. I'm not concerned about what other people think about it. It's just something I'm doing for my own, versus when people are constantly kind of looking over their shoulder to see how their work is accepted by everyone else, and this and that, and looking for the all the whatever they get based on posting their work on Instagram or whatever, and paying attention to the likes and all that sort of setup. It definitely changes the motivation of things. So it was a very interesting experience, just going around doing my own thing with the driving. And I'm sure there are some people probably behind me at some point. They're like, why is this guy going the speed limit? Why is this guy going the speed limit? But you know what? Yeah. I don't care. I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So I think there could be some correlations to that as well. When it comes to expecting, hoping for perfection and this and that, and all that sort of setup, versus just doing your own thing and not really caring about the perfection, but having it lead to more of a enjoyable process along the way.
Yeah. I mean, that whole idea of don't worry about what's behind you, just keep moving along to where you want to go. That's, which of course is, it's of course a little difficult when you're dealing with depression, which is rumination over, rumination over the past, and anxiety is rumination over the future. So that's plays a part into it. But no, it definitely is important to realize that.
Yeah. And the other thing I just kind of on that same note a little bit, I keep getting these reminders from the dealer saying, hey, you're due for an oil change. You're due for an oil change. I looked at my odometer. I'm like, no, I'm like 2,000 miles from needing an oil change. I still got a lot to go. And I realized how much less I'm driving these days. And it's throwing off their algorithms for how much, I typically would be driving by this point. And which is I think one of the nice things about doing the cycling lately is that, a lot less than, driving to the area where I'd go skating, or, doing all the other errands I'm doing, during the course of the day as I'm, busy working on all this stuff at home. And so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when I used to work the day job, the commuting miles that I would do, that really adds up. And now that I'm, working from home, going on the trips, even with the mileage of going on those trips, it's still not a heck of a lot compared to the commuting miles. So it was just kind of an interesting thing that came up, where it's kind of like, oh, I am driving a lot less now based on a variety of factors. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'll still get those comments on YouTube, people saying like, you and you're driving your SUV and, driving over turtles and lizards and rabbits and destroying the planet. And this, I'm like, I'm really not driving all that much there, but
Yeah, neither am I anymore.
YouTube comment section.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not driving much either. Like ever since I graduated with my master's, so I'm not going to student teaching back and forth all the time. And even during the summer, really didn't drive much at all. And the past 4 months, I haven't. The most that I drive is going like to the gym 3 times a week and to the grocery store here and there, and bebop around on the weekends a little bit. But other than that, it's not like I'm driving it's not like I'm doing a 40 minutes commute to my college or to student teaching anymore like I was every day. So I'm curious if I could find what my mileage was in like May of last year when I stopped commuting and see how much everything changes based on that. Like how many miles I actually did put onto my vehicle because I'm not commuting so much.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to look at.
Yeah. And I was also thinking that, the area where I live here in San Diego, we have nice weather most of the year. But we don't really have much in the way of, we have some areas that have some decent bicycle infrastructure in terms of like dedicated bike lanes and stuff. But I was thinking that, if we lived in an area where there was really good bicycle infrastructure where I could just go and do errands with a bike, I would totally do that.
What is that? So is that Denmark that has like major bicycle infrastructure? Like everyone in Denmark owns a bike and just rides around.
That does sound familiar. I know that there's some areas over there that have that, and that just it would be such a nicer way of. I could totally see it going to the grocery store, have like a cargo bike of some sort, just go and picking up the groceries and cycling back. And I think if they were to build something like that, people would use it. But we are so locked into this car-based society. And it's obviously not going to work for everywhere. Like if you're in a northern climate where it's like snowy and icy and stuff, yeah, that's, maybe not as ideal. But I think that people give a lot of, they see it as highly unrealistic. But I think if they actually were to build something like that, I think people would be more inclined to use it. Just less stress, a more enjoyable experience. It wouldn't be for everyone, but man, I'd love to live in a place where that was more accessible and more common.
So would I. But I think the biggest issue that we come across is because America is so vast and everything is like, what is it? Like a 3-hour drive to us is like normalized, or that's not really a far drive. Yeah. Whereas you say to somebody over in Europe or anywhere else, like, oh yeah, I drive 3 hours, or I drive an hour for my commute. They're like, an hour takes me across the country. I think.
Yeah, I'm like almost at the country next to the next country at that point.
I think that's the biggest reason why we haven't yet, or likely never will, go to a very public transport, bicycle friendly kind of country, just because of everything being so strewn across. But I don't know.
Yeah, and they've done some things here in Southern California where they'll take what was a fairly major road, not a highway, not a freeway or anything, but a major road that has, let's say, 3 lanes of traffic going either direction. And then they'll cut that down to, say, 2 lanes, and then have like a nice big center divide with trees and stuff, and put in some bike lanes, and it looks nicer. Turns out we don't really need as many lanes for the cars. And then, when you put in the bike lanes and stuff like that, it makes it more accessible for people that are, cycling or whatever. But there's so much resistance to that because, people equate having more lanes with being able to get around faster. But it just creates this aesthetic where it's just nothing but pavement and huge parking lots and everything else that comes with that. But it has been nice to see some of the areas that have been changed a little bit, but just with so much infrastructure already built in place and just the way things sprawl out so much, especially here in Southern California. Yeah. It's not as well suited for it, but man, it sure would be nice.
Yeah, I think of, like we talked about last week with me getting the bike, I would love to be able to go and do, especially when I don't need a lot, just bike over to the grocery store, because it's only like, it's a 5-minute drive, so maybe, I don't know, 4 miles away, not even. And I would love to be able to do that, but in order for me to get there and not be on a major highway where people drive like assholes, and there's no bike infrastructure, so I would have to turn what could be an hour and a half ride, if that, or a half-hour ride into probably a 3-hour ride because of going around different back roads and like meandering around these areas to make it safe for myself, but also to make it more realistic. So it's a shame that it's so many areas don't have that infrastructure built in, and it's not a priority because we just want to get where we want to get as fast as possible, and who cares about the consequences?
Yeah. Good times. Any changes on the job front at all?
No.
I didn't suspect so, but you never know. New year, new prospects.
We'll see what happens. We'll see. Applied to a local high school that has an opening, and some schools are going to start having openings again around this time of year because of teachers leaving mid-year and all that. So see if anything crops up, but for right now, no, nothing new.
New year, but same old story.
Yep, just gonna make it, try and make it work again this year and see what happens come summer. But oh well, it is what it is.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.